with Wide Days, we like to have people that don't normally get asked to speak, and people that have done interesting things in the past and have helped shape the music scene in ways that don't always get recognized immediately. And I think with FiniTribe, with these two gentlemen who are the remainder of FiniTribe, albeit with a slightly different spelling, they were very early pioneers of electronic music in Scotland in the days when a sampler cost tens of thousands of pounds, and when it was very, very rare for artists to run their own record label or release their own music. So nowadays, what you take for granted, or what a lot of people take for granted as the norm, was being done by these guys as far back in the 80s, before quite a lot of people in this audience were born. So we have John Vick here on the far right.
Hello.
And Davey Miller in
Hello,
the
everyone.
middle. And they are the remnants of FiniTribe. So, guys, you started in the 80s, a long, long time ago. Was it as a school band?
Yeah, we weren't at school when we started FiniTribe, but we started the first band we were in when we were at school. Correct.
And were all the members that you're in the school band with eventually in FiniTribe as well?
Yeah. Everyone who was in the band at school was part of FiniTribe, yeah.
When was this? About 1984 or 85? Or?
FiniTribe formed 1984.
Right. Yeah. And what kind of constellation did the band have back then? I mean, how many of you were there? And
there were six people.
And was it originally electronic?
No.
Doing something slightly
different.
Tape loops.
Yeah. And drum machine and guitar and no bass and singing.
And were you the singer?
No, tape loop.
Okay. What about you?
Tambourine as well.
I was brought in because I was in a slightly different band, and I kind of had a big, huge tape recorder made by Sharp, I think it was. It was a kind of ghetto blaster, like the kind of old school hip hop ghetto blaster type things, and that was how we started recording. I used to come to the rehearsals.
Davey was useful.
Yeah, I was useful, so I was allowed to join, and they gave me some pieces of metal to hit.
And what were the early gigs like?
We did one here, actually here.
In the Pleasance?
Yeah, like here. And maybe it was, I don't know, 25 years ago? No, tell
30
me.
years ago.
30 years ago. It was so long ago. Actually here. Yeah.
And did you have bits of metal that you were hitting on the stage? And
yeah, little bits of metal. Not huge, great big bits. Springs.
We got, you know those clothes hangers which you get in shops? So I don't know, we were in Niger Street and we got upstairs into this old shops, Debenhams or whatever it would have been. Some
what
weird
every
shop.
woman wants, I think.
And we found these things, and so we just got one of them, and then we chopped another one up, all different lengths, not in tune, but just all different lengths. And then
we were never in tune.
Yeah, never in tune.
And did you get a lot of people coming at those gigs?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
And did you promote them all yourselves?
No. We did a lot of gigs for Youth CND at the time.
Yeah.
So we kind of got into a kind of circuit around that. Yeah, and they were fairly well attended, I think.
And at which point did you decide you'd like to release something?
After
John Peel.
John Peel. Yeah.
John Peel kind of gave us a session, and then that kind of escalated things quite a lot.
We went to London and we'd done 4 songs for John Peel, and then one of them was quite commercial, and so we went for this meeting at Cherry Red.
Oh yeah.
And they said, "Can you just do more like that?" And it was like, it was too hard to do more like that. You know, they don't come along that often. So then we just decided, instead of trying to get other people to release it, we would just do it, and it would get us gigs.
It was kind of one of these things that we kind of heard a lot along the way over 30 years. Can you do just more like that?
And so you decided
So we decided to do the opposite.
Right. And what was involved in releasing your own music back in those days?
Artwork, because Andy McGregor, he was a great artist, and he was at art college. He was just into it at school as well. So we wanted the sleeve. And then the music, we just did whatever we could, and we went and recorded it. And
found a distribution deal.
Yeah. Back then there was the cartel, and they said that one of their cartels said they would do it in Leamington Spa. What were they called?
I can't remember. There was five elements to the cartel, which is rough trade, for anyone who doesn't know what the cartel was.
And this was different distributors around the UK that all banded together, hence the name, they would distribute independently released music. Yeah. So was it expensive? And presumably you had to print up your vinyl, you had to record it and master it.
Yeah, it wasn't quite like that, because I think what happened with the cartel was quite quickly they said they would pay for the vinyl as long as we paid for the cut, recording and the artwork. So they kind of did this thing, because as long as they got to distribute it. So they did help us a little bit the very first time round. And
how many of those did you sell?
Like maybe 1,000, maybe less, 800.
I think their initial pressings were about 1,000.
Okay. And then what happened? I mean, did that give you a kind of taste for doing stuff on your own, or was it more a case that you decided it was quite a lot of hard work and it might be nicer for someone else to take on these tasks?
No, we enjoyed it. It was great. It was kind of like a kind of cottage industry. We kind of all played a part in it. What you have?
Cottage industry.
Yeah, we kind of all played it. We enjoyed it, but I think quite quickly other people got interested. We did lots of gigs, and more people got interested. John Peel gave us a session, so obviously you get massive exposure when you're in John Peel. A second session. So in those days, that was a big thing.
And did you organise your own tours as well?
Yeah.
Beef bus?
Yeah, we had a van called the Beef Bus, which was like a kind of old transit van with kind of windows and holes in the floor. Uh-huh. And you set your hair on fire in that once. Shh. It broke down all the time. It was kind of my attempt at starting a business. Sort of driving bands around, but it just ended up driving us around.
Yeah, and we got stopped. We broke down
a lot.
And this guy, the best one was when this guy, like the AA or whoever, turned up, and this guy got out, and he looked so pissed off, and he was walking along towards us, and we could see him. It was freezing. We were on that, going into England at the pass, yeah, and he was walking along with a hammer in his hand. That's all he needed to fix the beef bus. And he opened up the bonnet and he just battered the engine until it started. And then that was it.
It's a bit like our music,
but he was standing there with a hammer. You're like, a hammer.
And in those days where you said you started with tape loops and experimenting with that, once you started releasing your own music and going on tour, was that when you started to make your own instruments and create your own musical machinery?
Yeah, I mean, I did electronic engineering as a hobby more than anything. So I kind of started to build bits and pieces, and nothing special, but at least we had something which would make an unusual sound. And then from that point on, that got integrated into the music, in a big way. And it moved on quick. Well, no, we then I got a job in a studio, and I was fixing the studios and making them work. And then it meant we could actually do our recordings overnight for free. So everything was done it didn't cost very much to do, because we were working in the industry in a funny way. David was working at the cartel. Fast forward. So David had this link. So there was going to be a place to release the records, and there was going to be a place to record the records, and then we would actually put the music together. So we had it all to do.
And in those days, you say that through working in the studio, you were able to use it for free. But if you hadn't been, how much did it cost for a day in that studio?
I don't know, maybe 30 quid an hour. Back then, it was quite a lot. It was like we're wet, we're recording. So it was quite funny. I don't know.
And the Bay City Rollers.
Huh?
And the Bay City Rollers?
Yeah, that's right. They came in sometimes. Oh, yeah.
Did you have to engineer
nice,
them?
but odd.
That's how old we are.
And so you start at this point. You're putting things out yourself. You're creating your own instruments. You mentioned Wet, Wet, Wet. So you really were the antithesis of this kind of cheesy white soul boy Glasgow pop. I mean, how did you fit into the music scene here in Edinburgh? Did you fit in at all?
No, we didn't fit in at all. We were kind of... We had a kind of association with a kind of one side of the Edinburgh music scene, which was like there was bands like the Visitors, and there was bands like that kind of semi-industrial kind of thing.
Twin Sets,
and but then the other side of it was Joseph K, Scars, Fire Engines, who we didn't really fit in with at all, and we didn't really communicate. They didn't communicate with us. We kept our distance. Although we're all good friends now, but it was a difficult time.
And at which point did things start to really then take off, where you start to, get courted by labels and labels that perhaps didn't say, "Can you do more like this?" And with managers as well.
Wax Tracks was the first one which really came to us because we did everything through the Cartel, and then I think it was Wax Tracks, wasn't it? And they were like a Chicago label. But they had this office in London at Southern Studios, and I worked there sometimes as well in the studio. And
Southerns were Lee Scratch Perry and all those people kind of recorded.
Adrian Sherwood, and so then they wanted, the Chicago label wanted to do it, so it was good. And they said they would do full color sleeves, and they just kind of did it. They looked after us, so that was quite good.
And when was that?
1986.
Yeah.
So that really kind of predates the whole acid house thing when it took off here. So they put out, was it Detestimony and
Detestimony came out first on our own label, and then Cathexis, which is a Glasgow label, and then that was released, and it kind of just did its thing, and we kind of forgot about it and moved on to the next. And we had signed to Wax Tracks by that point, and then the acid house thing happened in 1987, 88. And unbeknown to us, our record was used in Ibiza because it had this bell melody in it. Well, it wasn't really a melody, yeah. And it was discovered there by a load of DJs like Paul Oakenfold, Danny Rampling, and Trevor Fung. And then it just went ridiculous. And then Pete Tong got in touch. So it kind of just escalated from there.
They put it on a compilation. So in 1988, this record, which has come out 2 years ago, which we didn't even play live anymore, and it was really successful, and everyone wanted to play it, and they were playing it. It wasn't acid house music, but it was mixed in with acid house music. So we became this acid house band, but we didn't even do acid house. We were still like wacky. But anyway, the bells were good.
And
then we got money.
That's a bit soft.
Then someone gave us money, lots of it.
This is, we'll come to that in a
Our
minute.
wallpaper.
But before we do, I'm really interested in what that was like. You've kind of moved on. It's 2 years later. You're not even playing this song, and then suddenly everyone's interested in FiniTribe for this song that you'd practically forgotten. I mean, how did that feel? Did you feel like a pressure that you should be playing up to, or you should be playing it, or were you just happy to go along with?
Well, we got asked if you could do some more like that. But no, I don't know. We
split up.
So you suddenly, like, this record's taken off, and you decide to split up.
Yeah.
Right. And then what got you back together?
Friendship.
Oh.
That's after the first split as well.
Yeah. Now Chris left Joe to go to America because we'd been signed to Wax Tracks. He developed a relationship with Al Jorgensen from Ministry, and so he went to America and joined Revolting Cocks and then Ministry. So once he left, he was the singer. I guess he was like a bit of a focal point. Mm-hmm. And then we were all a bit fed up because the tours were happening, but nobody was really coming to the gigs. And we just got a bit fed up.
I didn't.
No. Okay, I got fed up. I left you.
Bastard.
But I came back.
So when
I
did
thought
you
I
come
came
back?
back.
I mean, it doesn't sound like a very long absence.
It wasn't really. I think John and Philip carried on. I went to work. I continued to work for the cartel. The record got a bit bigger.
Well, that's when, this is what happened, okay? So we'd split up, everyone went their way. There was Phil and I and Simon the drummer, and Davey was still working at the cartel. Then the phones go, this record's taking off. And we don't really know what to do about it because we've moved on and we were making an album. And then One Little Indian, they got in touch. And Davey, there was some sort of connection. Davey wanted to come back. And I said yes.
I begged. I went to New York to there's a chap in the audience called Tam Coyle. I just had to mention that name. I went to New York with Tam Coyle, and I met One Little Indian, a guy called Tim who was in Flux of Pink Indians. And then, I don't know, you're in a bar, you drink, someone says, do you want to put a record out? You say yes. And that's how it started, really.
Actually, that's what happened. Davey said, I'll get a deal if you let me back in the band.
That's kind of it.
That is kind of it. So Davey was back in the band, the drummer went his way, and the three of us were left, and the One Little Indian said, as long as we can put that song with the bells on this album, we'll release it. And then the publishing company said, as long as you release that song on that album with One Little Indian, we'll sign a publishing deal with you. So then we got all that money.
And is that what they based the album name on then?
Well, there was an album before that, which called Noise, Lust and Fun, which had just come out. It was kind of almost the last cottage industry thing we did. So they took that straight away, but they wanted the new album, which was called Grossing 10K. But in fact, we grossed 20K because we made them match each other. And back then, that was quite a lot of money, believe it or not. I know it's tiny. But
How much would it be now? Like,
oh, I don't know. Like it'd be like 200 grand maybe now in equivalent. Plus, they were paying for everything as well, so it was good.
And
it enabled us to kind of work on it 9 to 5.
And did you work on it here or did you work on it in London? I mean, where was the creative process happening?
Broughton Street, Planet Studio is where I was working. So we worked on it there, and then so we made those 2 albums there. And then after that, we then moved on to this new stage where we could actually afford proper musical instruments and actually unleash whatever happened next, which was quite a lot. And
how did these 2 albums go? I mean, was it a success? Were One Little Indian happy with the?
Yeah, they were fun. Like, so when we would do gigs, so we always did a show. So it was good fun. Like, the gigs were good fun. People would go, oh my God, what's here? You know, it was really good. And so they were really pleased, and then they wanted us to work on the next album. And so then we signed I think it was a £50,000 deal, and we started work on the next album. And because we had a rehearsal studio down in Leith, and I said, can we just get some equipment so we can do most of it outside the studio, because Planet was kind of like finishing. And so we were allowed to get on with buying equipment so that we could just get on with it ourselves. And we bought a sampler. Well, we'd already bought a sampler, actually, for the bells.
How much did it cost you?
£1,000. It was like not a £10,000 one. It was this cheap thing came along called a Mirage sampler. But because I did electronics, I knew how to make it work the best way. And so people were standing there with that, and this thing here was just kicking it out. And it was really good. So
that'd be like 10 grand in today's money?
Well, I don't know what inflation is, but yeah, maybe 4 grand,
right.
5 grand for a keyboard. That's quite a lot. Now, if you went and got a keyboard, you wouldn't spend more than a sampler. Wouldn't cost even 800 quid now for an amazing thing. This was an old banger, but it was really good. I mean, it really got us going.
And so you start doing that. You've managed to buy a sampler, and is this around the time where dance music is really taking off? I mean, we've reached sort of 1990, 91 by now.
Yeah, we're right in the middle of the whole kind of explosion of acid house and the kind of subsequent club culture that came from that.
And were you getting involved with that yourselves?
We were playing gigs with people involved with it. We were playing with Andrew Weatherall, and we played with Ya Wobble, and we played with all sorts of people around then. Justin Robertson.
We were always asked to come along because of this acid house song. Okay.
But did you embrace the culture? Were you sort of giving it loudly on the stage when you weren't playing and staying up
When we
all
weren't
night.
playing?
Yeah, staying up all night, that kind of thing.
We always played.
We went to raves.
You did go to raves?
We did go to raves, yeah.
And in your spare time or just professionally?
Just professionally.
Just professionally.
We would never go for recreation, just professionally.
And so what was it like getting this kind of belated recognition from this new music movement? Was it an unusual feeling?
Well, we didn't do acid house music, so it was
Yeah.
unusual sort of getting booked to do it. And they said they don't mind. We'd actually sometimes say, well, we don't actually do that music. Are you sure? Yeah. They just wanted us there, almost like I thought they'd just laugh at us. But it was actually okay. And we changed our music because we got this equipment. We changed it to work more in that environment. Plus, it was a good environment. The repetitiveness was good. And their trance, not trance music, entrancing music. That was good.
So what was it like with the audiences? Was it one of those situations where they were all waiting to hear the testimony, or was it more that they were generally into the whole set?
I think once they got the handle of the whole set, they were into that as much as the testimony. There was other songs like 101 and Ace Love Juice, which all were as good.
There was records coming out, and so people were coming along because of those records. So Mr. Egg would come and help us. He would come and help us on tour. He would do all the merchandise. So there was records. There was the whole thing. We were actually a thing, even though it was a bit mad. We were this thing. So some people would want just the acid house, but they weren't going to get it from us. But lots of people came because they wanted the music, and so more and more people came for the music, and not just acid house. Yeah.
We'd also, round about that time, well, just before that time, we'd released Animal Farm, which was the Fuck Off McDonald's campaign.
Can you tell us a little bit about this? Because I remember this at the time. There's a picture that this is how long I've had the T-shirt when it appears.
We're going to see Olaf modelling.
This picture was obviously taken recently. I didn't look like that 20 odd years ago when it came out. But this is with the re-release of The Testimony with the Optimo remix and Justin Robertson remix and stuff last year. But you see there's quite a lot of holes in that T-shirt. I have no idea how they got there. But this T-shirt was quite a limited thing. I can remember taking great delight in buying one. I think it was down in Coburn Street. But this kind of got you a lot of publicity, didn't it? And I remember
all the way to McDonald's lawyers.
Right. So we should definitely leave this in the final video cut here. What happened?
We made a record called Animal Farm, and it had a kind of the Animal Farm refrain, like Old MacDonald.
We went to Moneymale.
Oh, we went, yeah.
We went to this weird place. This kind of it was weird. It was like a monastery or something. Yeah. And we had the sampler, and we made this song called Animal Farm, and we were all really excited about this song. And then Davey had watched a program about McDonald's, and so he came up with these lyrics. I'd done the music, and so we battered together this song, and it was called Animal Farm, and that's what came from it. You know, it was like almost like it was a protest song, but it wasn't really. We weren't ramming it down people's throats. It was more like just good words about something which was. All our songs were always about something. You know, they weren't love songs. They were.
But this was, I mean, what was it? Hundreds of posters appeared around London overnight.
It was the first time we kind of sat down with a record company and we had a campaign, a marketing campaign. Derek, I don't know who came up with the idea of the poster, but we did, and they were all over London. Well, there was 100 posters put up in London, and they very quickly got a lot of media attention. And the T-shirt, actually, we sold thousands of the T-shirts.
There was 5,000 posters made. Okay, 1,000 came to us to go on tour. 4,000 were at Rough Trade, which was a big place in London, and like the distribution centre. It was only 75 posters got put up in London, and the police raided Rough Trade and confiscated them for the rest of the 4,000. We were on tour. We got this call. We had 1,000 posters, which were then like gold. And then one little Indian said to us, don't say anything, but they're your tour support. And then Mr. Egg, who was Eggy Bamyazi, he was doing all the merchandise, and he just sold them, and they sold so quickly I've never seen something. People were coming for those posters. They were huge posters.
Did it help you sell a lot of the record?
No, it was.
I think we probably sold more posters than records.
Way more.
And that paid for the tour then?
Yeah. It was like tour support, It was just back in the day, they'd help you go on tour, so they would promote the single. Yeah.
So it sounds like One Little Indian were pretty receptive to some interesting marketing ideas, and clearly there was a good relationship with them then. I mean, why did you leave One Little Indian? What happened?
Me or you?
You.
Me?
Yeah, you. Well, I'll join in.
Okay.
But you
don't butt in though.
No, I won't butt in. You start then.
So we were releasing singles, and we're on. So the Shaman were on One Little Indian, and they had this team of people called the Beatmasters who did remixes, and they wanted the Beatmasters remix so it would go into the charts. And it was like, do you know what? Really, do we really want to do that? Charts, fine. Beatmasters remix, not so sure. So off this song went to get mixed, and he just came back, and it was just you just could not front this song. It was horrific, but they wanted to go with it, and it was like, no, we won't go with that. We'll just do our own thing. And
so we left.
Yeah, and we kind of went on strike. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you're not really allowed to leave a record company. You're contracted to it, but we left and set up our own thing again. So they started releasing records on our own.
Yeah, so they said to us, well, what are you going to do? We're not going to release anything. And because we were sitting there with a recording studio, knew exactly what we were doing. We said, that's fine, you don't have to, but we will. And we'll go out as FiniFlex, a FiniFlex production, and you can watch. And then when you're ready, we'll deal. And when we said this, we also handed over our first single. And we said, and if you tune in on Friday night, you'll hear it on Pete Tong. And they were sort of gobsmacked because we'd got more radio than they could get on our own, off our own back. And we left them. And then they said they wanted 50 grand. And we wouldn't be able to release anything as FiniTribe until we'd given them that money. And so we went on the little search for some money. And there you go.
I think this what really interests me about this is the idea of a band actually paying back in advance and going, all right, here, have your money back then, and we're going to go off and get a better deal. I mean, until we discussed this a few weeks ago, I'd never actually heard of that happening. And, again, it's so, I've not really heard of any examples of it happening since. And how did that work? How did you manage to take £50,000, build the studio with it, do what you did, and then get more cash and pay off the record company?
After we left One Little Indian, this guy Tom Watkins got in touch, who managed the Pet Shop Boys and East 17, and he got us to remix a band called Two Thirds, and I think he gave us £5,000 to remix them. So that was kind of quite a bit of money, and then he kind of liked what we did, so he kind of said, I kind of quite like to manage you. We never
Can
ever
we
signed.
get a picture of these guys up, what they looked like at this point? You're not that one there, but there you go. This is what the chaps looked like back in those days.
Tom seemed to think that we'd be kind of like a gay orbital. I have no idea why he thought that, but
it's the guy in the middle.
I think so.
It was a very expensive hat.
And so Tom Watkins was putting you up as well, wasn't he? I mean, you were staying in his house.
You could say that, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Next door to Lulu.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was quite funny, actually.
Lulu used to wave to us in the morning.
When we went down to his swimming pool.
Did you have Speedos on?
Did we have anything on?
Tom had a rule that you weren't allowed to wear anything in the pool. But
okay.
we didn't obey the rules, so we kept our trunks on.
Okay.
Yeah, we kept our trunks on. We kept our integrity.
Okay.
We let him introduce us to various record labels. Pete Tong was already interested. They signed us. They gave us $50,000 to give back to One Little Indian, and we moved on.
And how much more did you get on top of that $50,000?
God, what sort of question is this?
It's a business conference.
What about the music? We went to Shagra.
Yeah, we went to Shagra.
Publisher gave us money, and he said,
right.
Can I do an Andy Heath voice? I don't think I can anymore. But this guy, our old publisher, and he said to us, he wanted us to make an album. Eh?
I'm just asking if anybody knows Andy Heath.
Andy Heath, has anyone heard of him? Yeah, you have.
Andy Heath was the director of Beggars Banquet, but he also ran a publishing company called Momentum Music, and he'd supported us since grossing 10K.
So he sent us to do an album. He said, here's some money, go and get an album made. So we went up to the northwest of Scotland, a place called Shagra, and we took a small studio with us, and we went and built the beginnings of this album. And then Pete Tong came up, and we sat in the studio, which is in Leith, and I played him all the stuff which we had made, all these little ideas, and he said he wanted to do it, and he wanted to sign us to London Records, or FFRR, and well, actually, it was London, wasn't it, really, in the end?
Well, it still had the FFRM.
Yeah, and because this guy, Tom Watkins, was wanting to manage us, and he had put us in touch with them a bit, they basically said, we want you, but we don't want that. And so we went without Tom, and we went to London Records.
Well, by that, are you talking about your
They didn't
friend
want
Tom?
that management, yeah, because
Okay.
he's ferocious management, like nice but ferocious. And so we said we wanted to do that, and so we did this deal of 200 grand, 50 grand back to One Little Indian, 150 grand to us in 2 stages or whatever. And we got on this airplane. Remember Phil coming in with that money, and he was late, and we were sitting there on the plane, and like, there's no Phil, you know. And then he comes running up the aisle. God knows who was he with that night.
I don't know.
But anyway, he comes running up. He comes running up with his little pouch, and he brings out the check, and it's like, fuck, you know. And then we came back to Scotland, and we got on with making all these bits of music we made into this album, and then we released it.
And how did that go? I mean, you were on an imprint of a major label, or I don't know if London was a major yet then, but it was a huge label. They're obviously chart focused. They're spending all this money on in the hope that you're going to be a big success. And what kind of things were involved in setting that up?
There was lots of marketing meetings, lots of unnecessary meetings, really. They would the one thing I remember, and I think the most ridiculous thing that I remember, is being asked all of us to get on a plane to go to London to discuss what we would wear on Top of the Pops if we got Top of the Pops. So they sent us a car to take us to the airport, plane, another car at the other end to go to a meeting to talk about clothes. And that's what happened. That's what major labels did.
And were you all kind of loosely in agreement with what you should wear?
I love those clothes.
Which clothes?
Well, those ones, remember?
The see-through ones.
Yeah.
Oh, have we got a picture of the see-through ones? I don't know if it's still on the... That was the kind of cling film one, wasn't it?
We didn't send you those.
Yeah, I got one. So
we didn't do Top of the Pops, though.
Right, but do you get the clothes?
Yeah.
So you didn't get Top of the Pops. What happened next?
When you release a record on a major label, everyone's really excited. The whole company's really excited, and everyone talks to you. You walk into the office, and that person's waving at you, and this person smiles at you, and everything's fantastic. And then the record comes out, and it goes to number 51. And the next day you walk into the office, and you wave to the same people, and they turn their back. It happened very quickly, didn't it?
Well, I didn't experience that, but you did, didn't you?
Oh,
because I was busy.
Was it just me?
Well, I was busy programming to go, and we were going on tour.
Yeah, I know. Oh, here we go.
This is why they fell out.
Again.
So did you get dropped swiftly afterwards, or what happened? Did you get dropped?
No.
Or did they call you in for a meeting and just go, look, sorry, 51 in the charts just isn't really...
No, what happened was we were on tour. We got the next single out. I mean, it was all good. I mean, the singles were good out on an underground level, and they were great, and they were building. There was talk of the next stuff, but we were getting ready to go. We were on tour. And then they wanted to do more commercial stuff, maybe. But we were just, our gigs were good. At this point, right, we would do a gig, and it was amazing. I mean, it was really, really good.
How many people were coming?
Like hundreds.
Yeah,
Hundreds.
400, 500, 600.
Yeah, it was never, not huge places, but still packed, and people would go mad. I mean, it was really good. They were fantastic gigs, and we'd got it right at this point, but only on our level, not the major level. And that was the problem. They kind of lost a bit of interest. The boys, wanted to kind of get a bit more commercial, and I was kind of happy with, we have this amazing studio, let's keep making music for FiniFlex Records, and let's keep going. And we were going to go out on tour, but we kind of had a bust up, and it was just like, no.
What caused the bust up?
Well, I don't know.
Wow, that's a whole other conversation. But I think, again, a mixture of commercial pressures.
Yeah.
People
working on people.
Yeah. Lawyers, accountants, wanting bits of you, wanting to do this. People saying maybe you should do that. People taking you aside and going,
So can you make some more of this?
Can you make some more of that?
Yeah.
And so we knew that the only way we could get out is if we took a 15-year break.
Right.
And I just said, right, I'm just going to pretend I'm pissed off with you guys. You pretend the same, and let's get back together 15 years later.
And in the meantime, you ran FiniFlex as a label, or were you still doing that before or already doing that before you fell out?
No. FiniFlex was running as a label when we were doing FiniTribe with London Records. We still had FiniFlex, and we were releasing quite a few records, and so it was good. But when we split up, I carried on with the label and the studio, and Davey and Phil, they carried on with the band, but they kind of lost interest.
I think we did an album with Infectious, which is Corder Marshall's label. And it kind of started to peter out. Things had kind of changed a bit. I mean, we'd kind of gone back to using we used guitars and things, and it didn't really work. It really didn't work. And then the label said, we're not going to do another record. Andy Heath said to us, I'm not going to continue to support you. And I think kids came along as well. So it was kind of like a time to kind of get a job. Well, for me, it was time to get a job and kind of do other things.
I carried on with the label, and there was this kind of an unusual record, which a bit like the Detestimony thing, and it just I made like 2,000 copies with some distribution company in London, Flying. Like an Italian label, and it just sold out really, really quickly. And it was Paul Oakenfold. He wanted it all the time, and he always wanted it. And I ran out. He phoned, and I said, I've only got 2 copies left. And he says, can I get them? And I said, no, you can have 1. And then he phoned again and said, can I get my management to phone you about just so that we can sign it to Perfecto? And I went, uh-huh. And so then they signed it to Perfecto. But this thing got licensed so much. And when you get licensing deals, so Cream Live 2 sold 250,000 copies. The studio got like maybe 50p a copy or 20p a copy. But when you add all that up, it adds up to quite a lot. So even though we weren't signed to anybody, and we were, it was me on my own really then.
So what name was that recorded under then?
That was called LostIt.com. It's FiniFlex production, LostIt.com, because the girl who was singing, Jules, Tom and Jules, she would lose it sometimes. And so, and the internet was just starting. And .com, and they ran this internet service, and it was like .com. Let's just call it LostIt.com. The most amazing thing. Can I tell the story?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, should I or shouldn't I?
I don't remember the story, so...
So I went into the office one morning, and there was a message on my phone, and they'd had this row, and she'd thrown the phone at him in the house, and of course it had hit last number redial, and the first message I got was this huge row, like just screaming and shouting, and then they came into the office about 10 minutes later, and I'm sitting there, and I just couldn't not say anything. I just said, right, you guys, this thing happened. I picked up the phone, there's a message, and it was you two having this go. And so then we laughed about it, and everything was fine, and that's why she lost it. And then that's how the name LostIt.com came around.
So was she you were making music with her?
Yeah.
And Tom?
Tom's run the internet for me ever since. So Tom's called me yesterday wanting one of these Orange records. Yeah, he runs a company in both the US and Britain. It's called Canvas Streams, and they just host. They're a hosting company.
So what interests me as well is that there was this phase where you'd set up FiniFlex, you're making music, but you're also attending music business conventions. It seems a bit... well, it also seems quite unusual for artists to be that engaged with the business side of things. How did that work? I mean, how did you square the creativity with the actual business side of it and developing those avenues?
I think one of the things we did early on is we bought a building and we kind of turned it into a studio, and it had an office, and we kind of saw it as work. Yeah. We saw it as our kind of...
Yeah, if we had the facilities, nothing was going to stop us. Nothing has stopped us. Nothing's going to stop us because we can just keep going. You know, no one has to buy anything, but we can still keep going.
We can still force it on you.
Yeah, yeah.
You've got the means.
Yeah, no, we treated it like a job. We went in at 9 o'clock, we clocked off at 5 o'clock, and sometimes we didn't stop, we just kept going.
And how did you divide the day up? Did you do the business side in the morning and then the recording in the afternoon? Or did you have recording days and writing days? Or
it was recording through the night, if I remember. Yeah. Like we would just record, and it wasn't really like business days. We would always go for lunch, actually. Yeah. That was amazing. The shore?
Yeah, we'd always go to the shore and Leith and have lunch every day. Mushroom soup.
That would be our meeting time, and we'd talk about what everyone was doing.
And in the meantime, what were your peers doing? I mean, if they were getting these big advances, were they investing them in a similar way?
I think we were pretty unusual in that we kind of made a business. We had a T-shirt company. We made posters. We made records. We signed Sparks. We were quite, when we signed Justin Robertson and we made a compilation album with lots of different artists. We were busy. We wanted to do it.
Sparks was good.
Sparks was amazing.
Yeah, so that was when we were with London doing FiniTribe, but we had Finiflex Records still going.
And were you huge fans of Sparks?
Kind of.
Yeah, we kind of originally contacted them because we wanted to do a cover version.
Yeah.
And for some reason that didn't happen, but we remixed one of their records.
Well, they wanted the remix done and they wanted it brought out in the UK. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
And then you fell out and you carried on making music and running the studio, running the label. How much longer did you run the label?
Only 4 more records.
Right.
Yeah, and then it was like, okay, I'll just run the studio because I just needed to I couldn't do, there was 3 of us down to 1 of us. It was kind of quite hard to kind of do it all. And so it was just 4 more singles, but it was good. And then I decided, actually, what I need to do is instead of doing music in the studio, I'll do post-production in the studio. And then I did post-production for all sorts of jobs for the last God knows how long, and always knowing that I could do the music or get back into the music. And then maybe 7 years ago, Davey?
Yeah.
Davey and I we talked about maybe doing something again.
At which point, actually, I'm quite interested. Did you really properly fall out where you hated each other for a while, or
I've never hated anybody?
You were just kind of like, we can't really be asked working together anymore.
We didn't see each other at all physically for good years and years.
Do you remember when you came back together when you saw each other again?
I worked in a kind of advertising marketing company round the corner from the studio, and I think we just kind of walked past each other one day, and there was kind of...
That's right.
There was an acknowledgement of our existence.
And then the next day you walked past again, and it was a friendlier wave or something.
And then it kind of gradually... I think I phoned you one day, and we had a chat.
Yeah.
And then you gave me the number of your lawyer, because I was needing a lawyer.
Yeah, I said... I did actually, didn't I?
And at what point did you decide to start making music again?
Well, we kind of talked about it then a little bit, and then the whole thing with the testimony came back up. A guy called Trevor Jackson in London, who's a DJ and producer, licensed the testimony again to his compilation Metal Dance, which was quite an interesting compilation. And he said to me, you should really re-release it. So it kind of got me thinking about it, and I spoke to John a little bit about it, and then we kind of worked on it. It took a little while to get together. And then last year it came out again. And since then, the kind of interest has grown and grown and grown and grown, hence partly why we're sitting here, I suppose. And it's just exciting again. And we kind of, with John, we eventually, as we kind of talked it all through, we kind of got through all the stuff that we'd done before, and we said, let's do it again, but let's just have fun. Let's just not go down the route of signing a record deal and having to do, can you do some more of those? That's our kind of mantra now, is not to do any more of those.
Will you be playing the Testimony, presumably, if you've re-released it with all these remixes?
Yeah, we've played it. Yeah.
We've got a brand new version of it, like it's like now version. Yeah.
Yeah, I quite like the now versions that I heard.
We did our first gig back here.
Yeah, our first gig was here like in October.
At the Pleasant Sessions.
Yeah.
Is there a record coming out? Are you putting out an album?
Well, 101 is being re-released, and then we're working on what might be an album. We don't know whether we want it to be an album or not. We've got an idea that it might be something different.
We've got a whole load of stuff which we can put together, which we're doing live as well. But we want to kind of go and finish it off somewhere. So that's what we were thinking.
Yeah, we're going to Iceland, I think, to kind of...
Instead of Shegra, we'll go to Iceland.
And
we're back with One Little Indian.
Yeah, I think this is great. I mean, you parted companies with them, and now you're back with them. How did that all come about?
I think we phoned Derek and said, "Look, Derek, we're going to release 101 again," and obviously they own the masters to 101, so we kind of had to do it through them. And Derek came up to see us, and we talked through the whole stuff again, and he said he wanted to do another album.
And what was it like seeing him again?
Like it was yesterday?
Yeah. You can have whatever you want.
Yeah. Whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
You can have Bjork's house.
But that just means nothing, but you know.
Yeah, he's given us Bjork's house. That's why we're going to Iceland.
Excellent. Is there anything else that you've got on the horizon that we can share with the audience?
No.
Any sort of foreign dates or any interest from abroad?
David's DJing quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of have to kind of engage with the industry to a point, and I think one of the things we need to get is a kind of agent who is able, because you just can't do that really. I mean, you can, but it's kind of difficult, and we're both kind of working on other things as well, so we need some involvement from the industry. So we will be looking for an agent to kind of. Everything works so far in advance. We're probably looking at next year for festivals and bigger tours. And I mean, if we release a record as an album, it will probably be end of the year or beginning of next year. Because it it takes months. The lead-in time, if you want to do a vinyl record at the moment, is 12 weeks. You have to provide everything 12 weeks before it comes out. So if you kind of extend that for an album, it's we're talking the end of the year at least.
And it will be vinyl then, presumably.
No, I mean I don't know. I mean we kind of touched on it a couple of days ago that we might not release it as an album. We might release it. Right. We might think about doing it a different way.
I think we're going to have to wrap it up, gents. But before you do, could we have a big round of applause, please, for FiniTribe?
Thank you for listening.
Thank you, gentlemen.